The metallic roar of the aircraft engines had barely settled when the humiliation began. A weary single dad, clothes wrinkled from rushing through airports, struggled to buckle his fidgety 7-year-old daughter into her seat when a sharply dressed CEO across the aisle smirked loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. The man scoffed at the dad's worn-out sneakers, his budget backpack, and the trembling hands that revealed a deeper exhaustion than lack of sleep. But 40,000 feet above the ground, judgment would not matter. Because in less than an hour, the captain's panicked voice would echo through the cabin asking a question no passenger ever expects: is there any fighter pilot on board? And everything everyone thought they knew about that single father would shatter like thin glass under pressure. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and never judging someone too quickly, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories like this. The single dad's name was Ayan Malik, a 36-year-old former Air Force pilot trying to rebuild life after losing his wife to a sudden illness. Ever since her passing, he moved through days carrying a weight that people couldn't see but could feel in the silent heaviness around him. He had traded cockpit adrenaline for manual labor jobs because he needed something stable, something that allowed him to be home for his daughter even when home felt half empty. Flying commercially now would have been unbearable for him emotionally, but this trip wasn't a vacation. His daughter Alina had been accepted into a therapy program in another city to help her cope with anxiety after witnessing her mother's final days. He had saved for months to afford the travel, cutting corners everywhere possible, patching his old shoes instead of buying new ones, and eating half his meals to make sure his daughter never felt the effect of his sacrifices. When they boarded the plane, he prayed only for a peaceful flight. The CEO, Leonard Briggs, wore success like armor, polished gold watch, crisp suit, and an aura that announced he belonged to the sky, not the ground. Leonard saw the struggling father and made a spectacle of his disdain, tossing comments about people who can't control their kids and budget passengers lowering the flight experience. Ayan heard every word, but grief had taught him silence. Battles chosen wisely hurt less. Instead, he focused on calming Alina, who clutched her stuffed bunny so tightly it looked close to tearing. She was afraid of flying, and every tremble of the aircraft magnified her fear. Ayan whispered soothing reassurances, kissing the top of her head with warmth that masked his own fear of the memories flying brought back, a wife waving goodbye one last time, a fighter jet roaring into eternity without the promise of return. When the seatbelt signs dimmed, Leonard called a flight attendant and loudly asked to be reseated away from people who don't belong in business class anyway, though they were all in economy. His theatrical annoyance gathered judgmental gazes from others, some sympathetic, some indifferent, but Ayan kept his eyes low. He didn't want conflict. He only wanted his daughter to feel safe. He held Alina's trembling fingers gently between his palms, breathing deeply to slow her panic. She looked up at him with tear-bright eyes and whispered that she was scared something bad might happen. He forced a smile, soft yet steady, and told her that as long as he was beside her, nothing could go wrong. Deep inside, he hoped life would honor that promise for once. 35 minutes into the flight, turbulence struck hard enough to jolt passengers upright. Gasps filled the cabin. Trays rattled. Overhead bins shivered. The aircraft dipped once, twice, then steadied, though an uneasy tremor coursed through its frame. The captain's voice broke through, strained in a way no passenger ever wants to hear. He explained they had encountered an unexpected weather pocket and one of the co-pilot's instruments had malfunctioned, making navigation uncertain. The cabin thickened with fear. A child cried. A woman prayed under her breath. Even Leonard's confidence wilted as he clutched his armrest tight enough to whiten his knuckles. 5 minutes later, the announcement came, the one that froze the entire aircraft in a shared silence of dread. The captain, voice heavy with urgency, asked if there was any experienced fighter pilot on board. Not a commercial pilot. Not a hobbyist. A fighter pilot. Because the aircraft needed steady hands, precision, and nerves tempered by military skies. Panic surged through the passengers. All eyes scanned the aisles, searching for a hero among them. But no one moved. No one raised a hand. Not even the CEO, whose confidence had evaporated into trembling breaths. Ion felt Alina grip him with desperate fear, burying her face into his chest. For a moment, he hesitated, not out of fear for himself but fear of returning to the sky that reminded him of everything he had lost. But when he looked around, saw passengers trembling and heard the captain's strained voice again, something inside him rose, the part of him that had once flown through storms with resolve carved from duty. He kissed Alina's forehead, told her to stay seated and brave, then stood slowly. Gasps echoed as people noticed the quiet father rising with calm determination. Even Leonard stared with stunned disbelief. The flight attendant hurried to him, eyes widening when he quietly said he had 18 years of fighter jet experience. Within moments, he was escorted to the cockpit. The door shut behind him with a weight that felt symbolic, closing the chapter of grief and opening one of purpose he thought he had lost forever. The captain, pale with strain, stepped aside to show the flickering instrument panel. Ion's training awakened like muscle memory. He adjusted the auxiliary systems, recalibrated the malfunctioning display, and took control with hands that remembered every vibration of an aircraft in distress. Passengers in the cabin felt the difference almost immediately. The aircraft steadied, the turbulent jerks easing into controlled motion. Fear softened into cautious hope. People whispered prayers of relief. The crew moved briskly, following Ion's instructions relayed through the captain. Outside, clouds parted just enough for a narrow path to emerge toward safer airspace, and Ion guided the plane with the kind of precision only battle-tested pilots possess.